An audio-only version of this video is linked below.
The words Swedish furniture design likely form an image in your mind, maybe something flat pack. But I'll bet your first thought was not of street furniture. That's a collective term for the objects and equipment installed in public spaces for our safety, convenience, and utility. Things like post boxes, street lamps, bollards, and pedestrian crossings. But one of Scandinavia's best pieces of industrial design has never been sold to the public, but is hiding in public in plain sight. In fact, you're not meant to look at it at all. It's this tactile map with relief symbols for people with vision impairment, and its influence has spread not only in the Nordics, but throughout Europe and beyond. Now, I'm not the first YouTuber to talk about accessible design when it comes to pedestrian crossings or crosswalk buttons. Tom Scott and Julian O'Shea have each covered the British and Australian designs brilliantly. Features like audible beaconing, like this, and haptic vibration are extremely helpful for vision-impaired pedestrians, and it's fantastic that similar features can be found in many accessible pedestrian signals made around the world. But the tactile crossing map is not just a feature that sets the Swedish signal boxes apart, it's also the first and original design of its kind. And the fact that it's remained unchanged for 35 years demonstrates how thoughtful, accessible design can enhance people's quality of life without most of us even realizing it. Now, I'm a bit of a nerd for public design, like street furniture, but there's no way I could have recorded all the examples I've shown so far, which is why I want to briefly thank this video's sponsor, Storyblocks. Storyblocks is a stock media platform that offers unlimited downloads of diverse and high-quality content for one predictable subscription cost. No more expensive pay-per-clip pricing, just pick a plan, pay that fee, and you're set. You'll enjoy a curated library of over 1 million HD and 4K video files, images, and motion graphics templates. And speaking of motion graphics, Storyblocks has expanded their library beyond Adobe Premiere Pro and After Effects and now cover my editor of choice, DaVinci Resolve, with customizable templates for motion graphics and animated sequences, an essential tool for creating professional-looking videos at scale. It's always easy to find what you're looking for on Storyblocks because their platform is really intuitive and new content is commissioned frequently to ensure you'll have fresh assets for your next project. To get started with unlimited stock media downloads at one set price, head to storyblocks.com/LinusBowman or click the link below this video. In 1989, industrial designer Kenneth Österlin was on the hunt for new projects. During his search, he reached out to Prisma. As it turned out, his timing was spot on. Prisma had an interesting challenge on their hands.
They had developed a ticking mechanism that adapted to the background noise levels, so it could be louder during daytime and more silent during nighttime. This was an innovation at the time, and they asked me to design a signal box to house it.
The brief was to design a housing that was durable, weather and vandal proof, and cost-effective to manufacture. Prisma had also consulted with the precursor to the Swedish Agency for Participation, which requested the addition of a tactile crossing map for people with low vision. To understand the effect this had for the community, I spoke with the SRF, Swedish Association of the Visually Impaired.
It's basically about safety, I think, because with those tactile maps on the signals, it gives me foreknowledge about how the crossing is built. I can get the feeling of being comfortable when moving around in the city environment.
For sighted pedestrians, crossing an intersection is pretty straightforward. At a glance, you can see the number of lanes and any potential risks. But for people with visual impairments, understanding the layout can be difficult when depending exclusively on sound, particularly identifying quieter hazards such as cyclists. Kenneth took this brief and through the design and consultation process, expanded it into a tactile map built on a set of relief symbols able to represent complex crossings purely through touch. The world's first modular system designed for this purpose. So before we go into the design process, let's look at the solution. This is a modern Prisma signal box. But aside from some lighting improvements and replacing the push button with a new sensor to prevent vandalism, surprisingly little has changed since the first model was produced in 1990. The whole thing is made from extruded aluminium, which makes it a passive heatsink for the electronics, eliminating moving parts like fans that would require maintenance. For cost efficiency, the top and bottom lids are constructed from the same mold, and they have a small plug hole where a directional arrow can be inserted to indicate the angle of the crossing to the curb. To insert the map, you remove the top and slide this piece out on the pedestrian-facing side. The relief symbols slide in like pieces in a game of Connect 4. The maps are always read from the bottom up, and the starting point symbol includes a directional arrow to reflect this. We have symbols for bike lanes that can be one way, flipped 180 degrees to change direction, or bidirectional. We have tram or train lines, refuge islands, and of course, motor vehicles. Finally, we have the arrival curb symbol, and these spaces sit on top to keep everything in place. Only 1 in every 10 people with vision impairment has complete loss of sight, so the color was deliberately chosen to provide high visual contrast. The blue chassis was carried over from the previous model, and yellow was chosen to stand out. But there's something appealing, possibly subconsciously, about it reflecting the colors of the Swedish flag. No design is created in a vacuum, so let's tie this into the larger context of wayfinding design. Some of the most well-known and iconic examples in the genre include Harry Beck's 1933 tube map and Massimo Vignelli's 1972 subway map. These designers understood that geographical accuracy was less important than visual clarity and utility. They simplified complex transit systems into clean lines and basic shapes, focusing on the information travelers needed to navigate effectively. Kenneth arrived upon a similar approach while designing his tactile maps.
I realized that you didn't need to know the exact way the surroundings looked like. All that was necessary was the path the person needed to walk, such as the starting point, various vehicles crossing your path, the refuge island, or the other side of the street.
To get from one station to another on the subway, you don't need to know the exact topology of the world above you. Likewise, visually impaired pedestrians need clear and distinct symbols rather than an exact replica of an intersection. The design also had to account for practical considerations unique to Nordic countries. Each element had to be recognizable by touch and distinguishable from others with zero ambiguity, even when wearing gloves in winter. This meant carefully considering the depth, size, and distance between each symbol. Following preliminary designs, prototypes were created and tested in partnership with the SRF and the Vision Ward at Sahlgrenska Hospital in Gothenburg. Feedback from blind and visually impaired users was crucial in shaping the design.
Initially, I had a single dot to represent bicycles, but the feedback was that bicycles, they have 2 wheels, so it would be more intuitive to have 2 dots instead. This was one of the changes which were made due to the discussions we had. Another example, my first sketches, they show different slanted lines on the starting point, but later on came the idea that we could have a separate arrow on top of the box, which the technicians could place in the exact angle to the curb. A designer's job is not to have all the right answers, but to know the right questions and who to ask.
Pedestrian safety and disability is sadly under-researched, but in 2012, when Vision Australia surveyed people with vision impairments, 1 in 12 had been in a collision with a motorist or cyclist in the previous 5 years, and 1 in 5 had experienced a near collision. To appreciate the difference tactile maps can have, consider the limited information available from audible beacons alone. Visually impaired pedestrians need to gauge crossing length by sound, perhaps even waiting through multiple light cycles to understand the timing at a complex intersection. Independent mobility is something people without disabilities often take for granted. However, it's these seemingly minor accessibility features that, when combined, promote the autonomy and independence of people living with various types of disability.
Accessible design is for me personally very important. 16 years ago, they installed tactile pavings on the train platforms. Before that, I had to walk right up to the edge and then follow the edge with my white cane. And that made me feel very uncomfortable. I had nightmares about falling off the edge of the platform. It was a huge issue for me. So tactile pavings on train stations or tactile maps on pedestrian crossings make me able to move around in the society.
Despite the benefits of the design, adoption has been inconsistent, even in Sweden. Because there's no national mandate, implementation falls to individual local authorities. So perhaps surprisingly, you won't find these tactile maps in the city of Stockholm, despite being the capital. This puts the onus on advocacy groups such as the SRF and local activists to promote adoption and keep inclusive design on city planners' agendas. In contrast, Austria has emerged as a leader in adoption. Since 2003, they have incorporated these symbols into their national EU-norm V2100 accessibility guidelines with minor changes rather than creating new designs. While these standards are not legally required, they have become expected as a mark of quality and to reduce the risk of legal liability. This has caused a significant ripple effect. Given Austria and Germany's close cultural and economic ties, manufacturers typically produce a single model that meets the standards of both countries. This effectively spread the design to a combined potential audience of nearly 100 million German-speaking people. But the spread didn't end there. Many manufacturers, such as Prisma, sell their products not only in Europe but also internationally, carrying these symbols far beyond the Nordics and German-speaking countries. And while pedestrian accessibility in the US may lag behind Europe, in New York City, a pilot project for tactile maps on crosswalk buttons explicitly referenced Österlin's relief symbols as inspiration, despite using a different orientation, putting a new spin on the original concept. The design has even made its way onto other types of street furniture. Several Scandinavian manufacturers now produce bollards for pedestrian crossings with tactile maps descended from Österlin's original design. For me, this echoes another legendary Swedish design in safety, the 3-point seatbelt. And while Volvo had a very active role in spreading and making that innovation freely available, this design appears to have followed a similar trajectory almost by accident. It's a design solution that has gone viral in an almost impossibly understated way, which feels fitting for a Scandinavian design classic.
I've been working on many projects during my career as an industrial designer, some 50 years, such as diving equipment, office and school furniture, and printing machine. I've also written some books on design methods. This project on the pedestrian crossing, it wasn't one of the biggest budget or fanfare. It was a great project, but working under very modest constraints. So I'm quite pleased it has endured for such a long time, and also to have been part of a process that created something positive in this world.
The story of the tactile crossing map is an excellent example of how thoughtful, inclusive design can improve the daily lives of people with disabilities, often in ways that go unnoticed by the majority. But just because they are meant to go unnoticed doesn't mean they shouldn't be celebrated. Thanks to Kenneth Österlin, Jimmy Pedersen of the SRF, and the Design Archive in Nybro, I've included links to all of my original research down in the video description. Thank you to my patrons over on Patreon who continue to make this channel possible. Until next time, my name is Linus. Stay design curious.